at the age of 12 already, I had swellings here and there in my body, and I would have headaches all the time. And so when we just did this regular blood tests, something was wrong, and follow-ups showed that I had this disease as well. At that time, they couldn't really connect FSGS with CMT. They thought that it was too different. So it wasn't until they found out what type of CMT that I have that they could do this conclusion that they too have this mutation in common.
Hello, everyone. This is Chris and LizO.
We are a brother-sister team.
And on behalf of the Charcot-Marie-Tooth Association, a.k.a. CMTA, we are coming at you.
Coming at you from coast to coast. I'm in California, and Chris is in the Green Mountain state of Vermont.
That's right. It's finally getting green.
Good.
Now we're into May. We just lost
white.
The snow last week. So this is another episode of our podcast named what, LizO?
CMT for me. CMT, the number 4, me.
And that's right, folks. CMT for Me, a community-focused podcast dedicated to those with CMT, giving them a voice in the community to share their stories, good or bad, their successes, their challenges, and much, much more.
That's a great intro. Thank you, Chris.
You're welcome.
So I was wondering,
I did an awesome job there, didn't I?
You do. You always do such an awesome job.
I always crush
I'm so
it.
Proud of you. You crush
Perfect.
it. Yep. So before we get into the podcast, the meat of the podcast, what are your travel plans for the summer? Are you doing anything with me or?
What is the meat of the podcast?
The main guest.
Oh, you like all those? Like, I'll just dip my toe in the water.
Yes.
The meat of the podcast. Yeah.
Yeah.
So confusing.
Just thought I'd bring that up.
Travel plans. Well, Lila graduates from college in a couple weeks from University of Virginia. We're going to take her to Hawaii, which is going to be cool.
Nice.
Yeah. See a really good friend of mine, my best friend, Rick, and his family. Haven't seen him for maybe in Hawaii anyways for 15, 20 years.
Wow.
So that'll be great. That's the big trip. And you're going to join us too for graduation, right? University of Virginia.
Flying to Vermont, then to Virginia, and then coming back. I wish I were invited to Hawaii, but I didn't get the invitation.
Nope.
But that's okay because I'm going to Tanzania this summer in June.
Aren't you special?
I know, right? We have friends there and we're going to go on safari. So
nice.
You know what?
You have friends there.
Well, we went there 20 years ago.
Oh, that's right.
And the father was murdered 6 months after our trip.
Oh,
and we helped put their kids through school. And he had 6 kids, which was nothing compared to U.S. education. They've all grown up. We haven't seen each other in 20 years. I've never met the kids. I've never met the wife. And the son, the eldest son, Joseph, he actually has a safari business now, working like his dad did. And he's the one that's bringing us on safari. So it's going to be a huge reunion and Johan's going. So really excited about it. Yeah, really excited.
Very fortunate.
But you know, I would love to go to the Nordic countries.
Oh, so would I.
Do you know what the Nordic countries are?
Yep.
I wrote them down for you.
I know. You didn't have to. I know them. And by the way, I can just repeat them. Sweden, Finland, Iceland, Denmark, and Norway. I mean, it's pretty simple.
What's the difference between the Nordic countries and the Scandinavian countries?
I don't want to talk about it.
Okay.
Brings back bad memories.
Would you ever want to go to, like, there's really cool things to do, like the Aurealis Borealis? I think I said that right. The lights in the sky.
Oh, yes.
And then, like, you can sleep in an ice castle. There's an ice castle. You can go and chill on an ice castle. Get that?
How about dog sledding?
You can go. I don't know. Dog sledding might be cool, but your allergies might act up. So
I know I'm highly allergic to dogs.
I know.
Maybe I don't need an EpiPen, just an inhaler. But listen.
Yeah, you had 20 of them. Oh my gosh! Stop it! Will you stop it? Just go take an inhaler right now. You can't. Can you speak Swedish?
Can I speak Swedish?
I don't know. Or Finnish?
I can speak Swedish. You know, that's one of the common languages I speak here in Vermont. I mean, right?
Okay, give me some Swedish.
Helan går.
What does that mean?
Snap visor. You know what that is? That's like a drinking song. You must know that, right? Supti snug. And fika. That means you like meat for coffee. And soka gri. You're a sugar pig. You just like sugar. You like sugar. And lagom. Just right. See, LizO? I've got it.
You are amazing. And I was watching you, and our guest, who is Swedish, was just.
Oh, wait. Avos garva. I think that's it. Something, I think it means laughing your head off.
That's what I'm doing. And that's exactly what she's doing too.
And you know where you love to eat? Donken.
Donuts?
No, that's Swedish for McDonald's. I can't believe you didn't know that stuff.
Listen, I want to
in closing, which I'll bring this up again, Din Leekens oof. That means you have a good life. We are very fortunate. So there you go, folks.
So our guest,
anybody in the podcast would like me to YouTube how to speak Swedish, I got it. Again, nailed it again.
You're so embarrassing. I thought one or two things, but you just went on and on. And our guest, who is from Sweden and lives in Sweden, is just cracking up. And she's putting her hand over her mouth like, oh my God, what is he talking about?
Garva. Our Garva. Yeah. I don't think she can start the podcast. She needs to recover. She just fell off the chair, folks. Laying on the ground.
Will you stop? Can I introduce her?
Yes, let's get on with it.
Camilla Stivenson. And she wrote in and she wanted to be on our podcast. Hello, Camilla.
Hey, welcome,
Hi,
Camilla.
Liz.
Are you having fun yet?
Yes, I am.
Listen, thank you so much for being on our podcast. We talked to you last week. You're very inspiring and an amazing woman. And I want to get to know you better. We'd like to get to know you better.
Well,
so tell us a little.
Listeners, right?
Well, yeah,
I mean, unbelievable. But LizO, just as you said, unbelievable story, the background, the perseverance, everything. So we're excited, Camilla. Thanks for taking the time. And by the way, folks, it is 4:45 here on the East Coast. And it is, what is that, Camilla? 10:45 where you are?
Yes, that's
okay.
correct.
That's a commitment
PM.
right there. 10:45 p.m.
Yeah. So she's very dedicated and she's up and she looks like she's full of life and energy. So tell us a little bit about yourself, Camilla. Why'd you want to come on our podcast?
First of all, thank you for having me. And the reason for me having this podcast is because I want to inspire other people with CMT out there that despite the hardships and despite the conditions and all of the struggles that we're having, there is still light in the tunnel, so to say. And I want to tell my story to inspire and to let people know that it's still possible to live a fully normal life. Yes.
So where do we start, LizO?
Maybe where she was born and how she ended up in Sweden.
Sweden. Okay.
Yes,
go for it.
So, yes, I was born in Uzbekistan. It's a country in Central Asia. And I came to Sweden as a 11-year-old little girl together with my father and his wife. And so I have been living in Sweden for 18 years, and I consider Sweden as my home.
You're very proud of that, right? You being in Sweden,
yes,
you are Swedish.
Yes,
and I consider Sweden my home as well. So,
yes.
What did you think of his accent and all that, his words?
It sounded legit.
Oh my God. Please.
Just did a little training, but other than that, I think it sounded quite good.
Okay.
Really, we need to talk after, Camilla.
So tell us about why you moved to Sweden and at that age.
Basically,
and you also said it was with your father's wife. You didn't say
your mom. So what happened there?
Yes. So my mom passed away when I was 2 years old. And so I never had this chance to actually get to know her. And I don't have any memories of her. So I
None at all? You have no memories at all? Nothing?
No, I don't.
Okay.
Yes. And maybe in a way it's good because what makes us sad when people pass away is all the memories that you have with those people, right? So when you don't have them, I think it's easier to cope, I think, in a way. So I was raised by my father's parents, basically, by my grandparents.
It was your father's parents?
Yes, it was my father's parents. Yes.
Okay, so what happened to your mom? How did she die?
She died from kidney failure. She had a kidney disease, and basically she hadn't had the option to get transplanted. And so she died from kidney failure 2 years after giving birth to me.
Was that related to CMT?
Yes.
So tell us about that, because we don't hear about this it's very rare to have that combination.
And just so you know, Elizabeth said, tell our listeners about that, to everything you said. So I don't know where you want to start, but
yeah, I'll just let her talk.
Go ahead. Yeah. Okay. That'd be good.
Yes. So I have a rare type of rare disease. My type is called CMT-DIE, which sounds a bit tragic. CMT-DIE.
Yeah, it
Yes,
does. Yeah.
it does.
Yes. And so this mutation that I have, it can give you two different diseases. So they're not related to each other, but you can get both of them with this one mutation, basically. And so what happened is that my mom had both of them. So she had CMT, and then she had this kidney problem as well, kidney issues. And so I inherited that as well. So I had that as well.
So it's a 50-50 chance of passing it down. I talked to someone at the CMT. I talked to Kenny B.
Oh, he knows. Huh?
Yeah, he knows. And he said it's the IFN2 gene. And not everyone with this mutation has the kidney problem that goes along with this, but some people do. And your mom was one of those cases. So living in Uzbekistan, did she know she had CMT with this kidney thing, or?
Probably not. Probably not. I think that she hadn't a diagnosis to begin with.
Yeah, they probably could not diagnose it. I mean, the fact that it's rare, and we're still learning so much about CMT now.
This was back in 95. I mean, it was 25 years ago. So
yeah. And there must be a very small population of individuals diagnosed with CMT-DIE. I mean, it's really the first time I've heard of it.
Yes.
LizO, do you know? Or just Kenny?
Yeah, I'll have to put the statistics after.
Yeah, I mean,
Camilla, you had some
There we go. That sounded great. You try. Was that supposed to be in Swedish? They don't talk that way.
Yes. When I first got this diagnosis, I remember that my doctor, he was a researcher at Karolinska. It's the biggest hospital in Sweden. I was nervous, and he was like, well, where do I start? Explaining what you have. He started to explain that I have CMT, what it is, and what the outcome is, what to expect in the future. And then he just stopped a bit and then, well, you know what? You actually have a rare type of this rare disease. He was so serious, the facial impression.
Yeah.
And I was worried that it was something really bad. And then he smiled and said, well, you're unique. Just so you know, it's only 16 people in the whole world having this rare type. And this was back in 2009. I'm not sure how many people there are now, but at that time it was 16 people. I had never heard about CMT. I had no idea about what it was. But then it felt good that I at least had a name of this disease, of what I was having. And so, 16 people is really rare.
And that diagnosis was, what, at the age of 15, did you say?
14, 15, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So at the time you were in Sweden and beforehand you had some symptoms growing up. And did anybody say you might have some neurological disease?
I think I was around 5, 6 when I started to fall. I would just run and fall. And I didn't have an explanation to why I would fall so much. I would play with my friends and I would just fall. And I couldn't just explain it. But we didn't think about that much about it until I was 12 years old, when I started to get drop feet. That was one of the first symptoms, basically. I could have flip-flops on and just run around, and all of a sudden I couldn't anymore. They would just fall out.
And so you were living with your grandparents at the time, because your grandparents on your father's side, the father's parents brought you up, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And so did they give an explanation or?
Since the symptoms started after I moved to Sweden, they never knew about that, to be honest. So I told my grandma over the phone, I was like, I have this disease. And I think that my mom had the same. And she's like, well, there's absolutely nothing wrong with you.
Oh,
I don't believe that you have this.
Oh, really?
So, yeah, I think she was protective in a way.
You told your grandmother, you didn't say this to your father?
My father, he knew about this. I mean, he went to the doctors together with me.
Okay.
It came as a shock to everyone that I had it, because I was perfectly normal until I was 12. And then all of a sudden I started to walk like this.
When you were told that you have this type of CMT, how'd you respond to that?
Well, the first thing I experienced, I felt was shock. I knew that something was wrong, but I couldn't tell what it was. And when I finally got the diagnosis, I felt like, well, I had all of these questions. What would happen in the future?
Yeah.
Am I going to sit in a wheelchair? Am I going to be able to move my legs in the future? Or what's going to happen? I was afraid of the future. I was feeling all of this different emotions at the same time. And it's hard to just pinpoint and say I
Yeah.
was feeling it. It was just emotions, and it was tough. But at the same time, I had this strange feeling of coolness. I was like, maybe that's because I still was a kid and I didn't understand the seriousness of this in a way. And so I didn't think that much after, to be honest. I got my first dictus band, ankle braces that you have
Okay.
Yeah.
to lift your feet up if you have drop feet. I got them and I could walk again normally. I was happy.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. And then I didn't think about it that much. I didn't want it to affect my life.
Who did you talk to about all this, like all these feelings that you're having, emotions?
No one, to be honest. No one. I didn't have a great relationship with my father, so he wouldn't be the first one I would go to talk. I didn't have anyone at that moment, to be
Boy, that
honest,
must
to
have
deal
been
with all of
hard.
these emotions. It was really hard. Deep down, I tried to just hide my emotions. I tried to just not think about it, basically.
Yeah. And then with the relationship with your grandmother, you had referenced, she just said, oh, you don't have this, right? So you really didn't have her to talk to. And you guys were really close. So that's interesting, right?
What happened to your mom's parents?
It's an interesting story as well. So after my mom died, they wanted to have me back, my grandma, but they weren't allowed by my grandparents on my father's side. I don't have the exact picture of what happened, but they lost contact. And so I never had the chance to actually meet with my grandma on my mother's side. She passed away, sadly, I think in 2010, if I'm not mistaken. So I never had the chance to talk to her, actually.
Ah, how do you feel about that?
It's hard. It's hard. I have done this 23andMe. I found everyone who is alive. I'm sad that I didn't find her on time. I was too late. So I had all of these questions I wanted to ask her about my mother. So
yeah. Was your father be able to fill you in a little bit about your mom? Do you have a picture about your mom now?
Yes, I have. I have.
Tell us about her.
She was kind-hearted from what I have heard from other people, really keen to helping others. And she would never complain about her conditions, even though she would struggle walking. At that time, they didn't have any ankle braces or any other help with the symptoms. And that she would be ashamed sometimes of her walking. She would never complain about it, but she would be ashamed of it, how people would just point at her. And yeah,
I would imagine that's a tough thing. And I even think when we talk to you, which I'm not trying to fast forward, but I think that's something you felt as well, right?
Yes, I did. I did. And I did that for several years, to be honest, especially, if I would go swimming or any activities where I don't have my shoes on and when I need to walk this specific way. Even if no one would look at me, I would just have this feeling of everyone is looking at me.
Yeah.
Sure.
I felt really stressed. And I think I had that for at least 5-6 years.
Yeah.
What kept you going, Camilla? What kept you moving forward and not breaking down? Because you've had a lot of stress in your life, a lot of things happening, but you have this very strong energy and you keep going. So where does that come from?
Well, I think it has to do with all the love that I got from my grandparents. They really loved me. I think it's the first years of any child's life are super important. And I think if you feel loved, it's the ground, it's the base for everything else. I can't explain this feeling, but I had this energy inside of me. I wanted to live. I don't want to quit. Something was pushing me. I can't explain what, but I didn't want to quit. I want to live. I still have that energy.
I know you do.
Yeah,
and let's tell our listeners a little bit about, so as I put the map together here, the timeline, you're diagnosed at, I think, 13 or 14, I believe. Yes. That was 2009.
Yes.
And then you left the house, didn't you, at the age of like 15?
Yes.
But she was in Sweden already.
Yes.
Right. And then you left your father, and just tell us about what was going on there in terms of with your father, his wife, and the wife's daughter, and what led up to that. I mean, that takes a lot to just move on.
And I think that also gives you motivation to keep going when you go through these kinds of hardships, basically.
Yeah.
So when we moved to Sweden, something was wrong. I felt something was wrong. And my relationship with my father's wife never got to any good level, so to say.
Yeah.
It would always be something that I would do wrong. Either if it's just washing the dishes, cleaning the house, or whatever I would do, it wouldn't be enough. It would be wrong. It wouldn't be enough. And it started from smaller things, washing too slow to, more and more things. It got to a point where she would physically hit me, where she would, make fun of my feet, my legs, the kind of walking I do. And her daughter would do the same. So they would do it together. And my father would be on her side. So I felt abandoned. I felt betrayed in a way by someone that I thought that I could trust. Things got worse. At the age of 15, I moved out from the house, basically. Now, the thing is that I never felt that that was my home, to be honest. Now, I'm being extremely open and telling all the details here.
Right.
This is something that I have been ashamed of earlier, to be honest. But there were days where when I would, just sleep outside. Like I would sleep outside to not just go home, just to not see her. I had this fear of being interrogated again, of being hit. And so I would literally stay outside to not go home. So I never felt like it was my home. And so I left when I was 15, ended up in a Swedish family. And I would live there I think I lived there for approximately 3 years. So until I
3 years.
What was this family like? Did they accept you? Did they understand you?
Yes, they did. I'm really thankful for this opportunity to be able to live a normal life finally again, just be able to come home. This is not a big deal for a lot of people to just come home, but now I could suddenly come home whenever I want and feel that I'm safe. And so it was a great feeling, to be honest. They were really nice people. They had grown up adult kids that didn't live together with them. So they had a room for me. It was nice.
So it sounds like you never really felt your father's home was your home. It was just like a stop along your journey.
And you didn't even want to go to Sweden in the first place, did you?
No.
But you're not happy now, but you were taken away from your grandparents abruptly.
Yes. So this is another story as well. So up until I was 11, I thought that my grandma was my mother. So this was another family secret that they kept. And I would literally call her mom. And this is ironic because I would oftentimes watch on the TV, about orphan kids. And I would say, oh, they don't have parents. And I'm so lucky to have parents. And then I was the one who didn't have a mom. Yeah. So I found out when I was 11 that my mom passed away and that I was raised by my grandma and not my mom. And it came as a shock. My father's wife told me that just in a rage. And so I didn't have the chance to just sit down and talk about it, but rather just words coming at me. And so when I moved to Sweden, it was kind of hard to separate from my grandma. It was really hard. The first year, I just cried continuously without her. And I think she cried as well. I had a hard time as well to just let me go. And I remember the day as if it was yesterday when we left in a taxi. And I was just looking, from the window on the back seat. And my grandma was like literally standing there and was like just waving and crying. And I was like, it was super emotional.
Yeah, I'm sure.
I can't even imagine.
And that image, good or bad, is something that you can remember all the details, right? It was something that impactful.
Yes.
And were you ever able to see her again?
No, I wasn't. We had phone contact all these years. Yes.
Okay. And so, listeners, the story gets much better, right? And that tells you a lot about Camilla. So now, right, you're out of the house at 15, and then you move in with this family. And then tell us about the kidney issues as a result of your CMT.
Yes. So I got the diagnosis. Actually, the kidney disease is called FSGS.
FSGS.
Yes. It stands for focal glomerulosclerosis, I think. But what happens is that tiny filters that you have on your kidneys, they start to get scarred, basically. They can't filter the blood anymore. So the kidney becomes useless. And I think at the age of 12 already, I had swellings here and there in the body, and I would have headaches all the time. And so when we just did this regular blood tests, something was wrong, and follow-ups showed that I had this disease as well. At that time, they couldn't really connect FSGS with CMT. They thought that it was too different. So it wasn't until they found out what type of CMT that I have that they could do this conclusion that they too have this mutation in common. And so everything was fine. I was taking my medications until I was 20. And when I gave birth to my daughter,
Congratulations.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And her name?
Her name is Sophia.
Sophia. Okay. Awesome.
She is almost 8. So it was a long time ago this happened. And so I think 5 months after I gave birth to her, I started to get worse. So my kidneys stopped working and I started doing dialysis.
What was that like?
It was tough. It was super tough. You have a 1-year-old at home. You have a husband who needs to work at the same time and then take care of yourself and then take care of your daughter. It's tough. And at the same time, all of these questions, will I ever get a kidney? Will I die now? Is it the end?
Oh, that must have been like terrifying.
Yes, it was. And for a period of time, I got depression. I was depressed. It was like my life was paused.
Do you ever think that maybe this is how were you able to relate to your mother at this point? Like ever think that maybe your mother had some of these same thoughts that you were having? I know she didn't do dialysis, right?
Yes, she did dialysis as well.
Oh, she did?
Yes.
Oh.
Yes, I definitely had those thoughts. I couldn't imagine how it was like knowing that you will die and then you have a kid at the same time. I can't even imagine how that felt. Now, I had hopes still because I'm living in Sweden. We have a great healthcare. And so I had hopes, of course, that I would get a transplant sooner or later. But imagine living in a country and you know that you will never get it. You're going to die someday soon. And then you have a child. And I can't imagine how that felt. And I have had all of these, emotions and thoughts about, life. Would I survive or not? It was hard. And so I was on dialysis for 10 months, I think, 10, 11 months approximately.
Wow.
It went pretty fast, to be honest, because the average waiting time is 2 years.
Wow.
And so I got a kidney transplant in 2016 from a deceased donor. I have no information about this person. Everything is anonymous, so I have no idea of who this was. I only know that this was someone in their 30s, so a young man or woman, basically.
Is there a part of you that wants to know who that was?
Yes.
Right?
Absolutely. Yes.
And
absolutely.
you never know. Maybe that individual listened to this podcast and that's your thank you. Who knows?
Yeah. That was a deceased donor, so I don't think that he's listening or she.
Well,
but
yeah. Correct.
But I still wanted to say thank you to parents or whoever is. But then at the same time, I understand why this is anonymous.
Yeah.
It's not for sure, given that they were on his side as well. Maybe he wanted to donate, but they didn't want him to donate. So when you
sometimes
lose someone,
better,
yeah, and when
not
you
to
lose
be
someone,
so close.
you don't know how they are feeling, what they are feeling. So, but absolutely, I had that idea. I felt like reborn, so to say. I wanted to thank them a lot for this.
Sure. So that was successful.
It was successful.
Which is great.
Yes.
Your husband must be awesome, right?
Yes,
I mean,
definitely.
you have a daughter, Sophia. Your husband's name is Ludwig. No, I'm just kidding. That's
Like
a Swedish name.
What's his name?
Can you pronounce that, Chris?
Ludwig.
Ludwig? That's not his name, is it?
No, it's not.
No, what is his name again?
His name is Akmal, so it's
Okay.
Akmal. It's a typical Uzbek name.
Right. So tell us a little bit about him and that. It just sounds like from the pre-interview, he's really your rock and just so supportive. So it's so great.
He has been supporting me all through this journey. We have been through a lot of hardships, a lot. It's tough to work at the same time and to deal with this.
But he works and you work.
Yes, now we both work, yes. I work as a product manager.
Yeah.
And he is a software engineer, so we both work in IT.
How did you even go to school with all this? I mean, was your mind focused on school?
Well, it wasn't, to be honest.
Yeah. How do you? Right.
It was hard. So basically, there is another hardship that I had in my life. I started all over again because when I was 18 and I got my first apartment, I needed to work. I didn't have time to study. I needed to work to provide for myself, basically. And so I got that chance first after my daughter was born. And so I started studying at the age of 24. I had a child and I was studying at the same time. And here I am.
And
Well, you
taking
make
those
it sound so
medications,
easy.
right?
Yeah.
I know, but she was taking
I know.
medications to keep her kidney, right? To keep it from
Yes.
rejecting.
Yes.
Right. That, raising a daughter, having CMT, trying to develop your career, going to school.
Yes.
So did you get a job when you finished your studies right
Yes.
away? You did. Yeah.
Yes. So I studied software engineering, and that's what I started working as well. And then I changed my career path just recently, and now working as a product manager, basically.
Wow. You're an
Unbelievable.
amazing woman.
You sure are.
Thank you.
I mean, incredible.
Camilla, how do you don't really have a blueprint for raising kids. I know you probably know what not to do. Was that a challenge for you, or did it come naturally? Like, this is how I want to raise my child.
No, I think it came kind of naturally. I think when you go through hardships in life, you have gone through that and you know what you want to learn and teach your kids to better pass this, if they would ever encounter hardship, so that they know how to pass through it, so to say. Since I had that experience, I knew what I want to have in her, what I want to teach her, basically.
Yeah.
What have you told her about your own CMT, or have you told her, or she must know the dialysis went on and all this. So have you been open with her, or?
Yes, I have. She was still small when I was on dialysis, so she didn't understand at that time.
Mm-hmm.
But of course, she asks what the scars are from, where they come from. And I tell her that I had kidney failure and I was doing dialysis. And of course, she has noticed how I walk. So she asks, of course, what that is, why I walk the way I walk. And then I explained to her that, so this is the disease that I have. And this is one of the symptoms that you have when you have this disease. And her grandma had the same disease, basically. And she can say something like, oh, and it's so great that I don't have it. And I'm like, yes, it is.
Right.
It
That's
is
right.
great.
So she does not have that gene.
She doesn't have it.
Yes,
Yeah.
she does not
Fantastic.
have that gene. We have tested her and she has not had that gene. And
Was that like a sense of relief to you that she does not have that?
Yes.
Like when you,
Yes.
right? I assume. I mean,
It was.
I know
But
the answer to that, but you have to feel like, oh, thank God.
Yes. It was a strange feeling because I called the doctor the day after and I was literally, can you please test her again? I'm so worried. Can you just test her once again? And he reassured me, and no, she doesn't have it. But I had that feeling, I couldn't just take it in. Oh, okay, she doesn't have it. But I needed to call again and ask.
Yeah, you're right. I would too. You'd probably call third time, fourth time, call every week.
Yeah. He would have a weekly blood test for his kids, right?
Yep.
It would just
They'd be like blocking the door, not letting me in anymore.
That wouldn't be sustainable, right? That would be very hard.
I wanted to ask you, so in terms of your independence and a lot of your personality or traits, etc., do you think your grandmother had a lot of influence on those?
Yes, definitely. I think so. Yes. I mean, whatever I would do, she would just encourage me to do that.
She would
always support me, and she would always tell me how good I am at what I'm doing, to always believe in me. So I think, of course, yes, I think so.
Thank God for her.
Totally.
Instill that in you.
Yes.
And just that recognition, so important, right? That positive,
yes.
Right? Is really, just those words can be so encouraging, right?
So Camilla, I heard from you about a year ago, and then I didn't hear from you. And then I did hear from you. What happened to you during those 6 months?
Yes. So initially I contacted you about a year ago, and I wanted to do this podcast. And then I just disappeared. The reason for that is that my grandma passed away, sadly, at that time. And I had all of these emotions and feelings, and I didn't see anything else than just sorrow and grief.
I'm so sorry.
It was hard to know that she was alone. I wasn't there. I couldn't support her. I couldn't be there on her side, by her side. And I would blame myself for not being there. She has always been there for me, and I wasn't there for her, basically. So I had these kinds of feelings. And also that I couldn't say goodbye properly to her. So it was tough.
Have you worked through that?
In a way, I have. Grief is difficult. It's
lasts a long time.
Yes, and it takes a long time. And to be honest, I haven't been able to look at her photos yet.
Yeah.
Still.
Yeah. That
I haven't.
In time.
Because it's just all of these emotions come back, and I try to, So I haven't actually done that for a year now.
The time will come, right? You'll know when you're ready.
Yes.
I'm sure it will happen at some point.
And what a beautiful foundation she gave you.
Yes, I completely agree. That was the most important thing that she could do for me.
And so with that, I think about within your family in terms of what you just said your grandmother did for you. What do you hope that you can give to your daughter?
I hope that I will give the same to her, the confidence, eagerness to always be open, to always to try to learn from others, to always be that person that gives the helping hand to anyone that would need it. And I always try to explain to her that if you would ever be in that situation, would you want someone to help you? Then do the same to someone else. And so, yeah, I would do the same for her as my grandma did for me.
You also mentioned you really want to instill in her never to be ashamed.
Yes, that
right?
Also. I think this is something that a lot of people with CMT experiences. They feel ashamed of how they walk, or maybe the braces that they have, that something is different and not like others. And although my daughter doesn't have CMT, I still want her to not be ashamed of her body, regardless of how she looks, how it looks. I want her to look up and say, I am enough as I am. And this is me. I am unique. There is no one else like me. I am unique and I'm me. That's what I want to tell her. That's what I want her to know. So what I do actually is that I try to remind her to go to and stand in front of a mirror and just say to herself, I am good at what I'm doing. I'm a nice person and I deserve to have a good life. I try to make her actively take steps to feel the way she needs to feel and not be ashamed.
It's beautiful.
So, and that's what beautiful. I would tell to everyone that have CMT and struggling. Just look up in the mirror. You are beautiful as you are. You're unique. I would ask myself before, like, why on earth did I get this? Why would I get this? Why can't I just be normal? And then it just hit me. I am normal. I am normal the way I am. This is my normal state. This is my body that I was given. And all of a sudden, I started to appreciate myself in another way, in a whole different way. And I still do that. I actually still do look on the mirror and talk to myself.
Oh, that's great.
It might sound a bit crazy, but
no, it's very inspiring. So if we could, LizO and I just want to jump through the screen and give you a big hug right now.
That's what I've been wanting to do the whole time.
I am like teary-eyed with joy just on your story. You are an amazing individual. What you just gave back to our listeners in the last 1 minute is incredible. That's very impactful, very well spoken and thoughtful, and it's just amazing.
I was just wondering how you see your life today going forward, and what is your thinking and drive, and what do you have fears? Do you wish not to look at the fears? What's your outlook, I guess?
Well, I have fears. I think everyone have fears. You can be secure and feel safe, but you still have your fears. The fears that I have are legit because of my condition. Sometimes I think about the future still. What will happen? Will I be able to do the basic things like taking showers and doing this and that, basic things? I'm afraid. But I think that since I have gone through so many hardships, I think I'm going to handle that as well. I'm going to be able to handle that. So
I know you will.
I try to look positively at it because, hey, I can either look negatively at it and be depressed, or I can look positively at it. It's going to come either way. So I choose to look positively at it. Life itself is a blessing. I'm living.
Well, I'd like to adopt you right now. Could I?
Yeah, I will too.
We'll share the adoption.
The whole family.
You are
your daughter,
our family now.
Ludwig, your daughter, Sophia.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
No, so it's great. It's so great.
This is
and you've made this life. You've made this life through just moving forward and doing the best you can in those situations. And you have a great support group with your family, and just a lot to look forward to, which is great. Yes. A great job. And it's just nice. Yes. You've done incredible things.
There are some things in life that you cannot do anything about, like CMT.
Yeah.
I think that there are a lot of other things that you can actually impact. You can choose how to pass through these hardships. You can choose how to look at it. And I think it's easy for me to sit here and say, oh, think positively, think like this and think like that. I know that it's easier said than done, but I think that once you take those small steps and start looking at it from different angles, and think positively, I think that's the start. It's not going to come all at once, just smaller steps.
That's right. And take each day at a time, and you'll be able to deal with whatever comes up. You've dealt with so much more in your past.
And it's not going to be easy, but it will come eventually. Even now, I have my fears, and I think it's normal to have fears.
Absolutely.
Oh,
Otherwise,
definitely.
It would be strange.
Have you ever met someone else with CMT?
No, I haven't. I would love to, but I haven't, to be honest.
So would you like to meet someone with the same type of CMT you have?
It doesn't matter, to be honest, if it would be the same type or not.
Okay. Well, I have both options, and I'll talk to you about that later. But I've been doing a little research to get you hooked up.
There we go. That's awesome, LizO.
It's time to end the isolation and join our community. And we have people that would love to meet you.
Yes. Okay. Yeah.
That sounds great.
That's excellent. I mean, it's great. It's just so nice having you on the podcast. And LizO, is it time for the crazy questions?
Yeah, I think it's time for the crazy questions. Take the first one.
You want me to take the first one? Okay.
All right.
So LizO comes up with these questions, and she allows me to read one of them, but they're pretty off the wall. So just get ready.
Okay.
What would you do if you found a penguin in the freezer?
This is my first reaction.
I don't know how she thinks of these things, but they're...
Oh, in the freezer. And would it be alive still?
I don't know.
If I found a penguin in the freezer, it's probably not living in.
Let's say it's alive.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Well, it's a tough question. I have never thought about what I would do about it.
You haven't?
Oh, not surprised.
Yeah, well, it's a common thing happening, right?
Yes.
Well, yeah, it happens all the time.
It's never happened to me, though. Well, to be honest, I would scream in panic, I think. That would be the first thing to do. Scream in panic.
And shut the door and keep them in there.
Shut the door. Yeah, yes.
And call Ludwig.
Yes, call Ludwig. Yes, whoever that is. I don't know who that is, but I would call Ludwig. Yes.
All right, LizO.
Well, the second one's not that crazy, but I decided to have a kind of serious question. So what's one question you would have liked to answer in this podcast, but we didn't ask the question?
Oh, wow. This one is a tough one.
We covered a lot of ground too. So
yes, it is. So what would I want you to ask me?
Yes, that we did not.
I'm not sure.
Okay.
I don't have that.
That's okay.
I'm not
How about,
sure.
did you ever play tennis?
Yes, I do. I do
go.
play tennis.
I have another question.
I knew that.
How would you explain the color yellow to someone who's blind?
Oh, wow.
Whoa.
Well, I would say that it's a warm tone. It's warmer. Well, that's a tricky question. How would you do that? They're blind, and so you cannot say that it's like a flower. You cannot say that.
I think that start, though, it's warm.
That's good. It's
because
warm.
I think of sunshine. And,
warm tone, yes, sunshine. And if you're blind, you would know that sun is yellow as well, right?
Right.
And then you would say, it's like the sun. It's yellow.
I'm
good
feeling
answer.
just
I like
warm like that. This is awesome.
Yeah.
It's just a warm tone.
All right. Well, LizO, I think we need to wrap it up.
Well, you've been wonderful. Thank you so much for
Camilla,
this interview.
thank you. I feel like you gave a lot back to myself as well. So
me
it
too.
makes me think of what I should be thinking about and doing as challenges come forward in my life too.
Absolutely. The choice. We have a choice.
Yep.
Yes, we have a choice. That's for sure.
Thank you so much. And let's keep in touch.
Thank you for having me. Let's keep in touch.
Yes. So I do want our listeners to know this is video recording and it is 11:37 in Sweden p.m. And for LizO, it's 2:37 p.m. in California. And LizO looks like she has been awake for 24 hours and Camilla only like an hour. So
that's right.
You would think LizO, it's like
we're in Sweden,
1 a.m. It's 1 a.m. in California.
You're so right.
So LizO, if someone wants to follow us on social media, where do they go?
Well, we have a Facebook page, CMT for Me Podcast on Facebook. Yep. And also we have Instagram. We're on Instagram, CMT for Me Podcast. And to our listeners, do you have a good story? Would you like to be a guest on CMT for Me Podcast? If so, let us know. info@cmtausa.org. Pitch us your story and we'd love to have you.
Awesome. And don't forget to leave us a stellar review so we can reach more folks. One way to leave a review is to go to Apple Podcasts or go to, here we go, Pod page. Yay, I said it. Leave a review there. Usually I go pod.
We both do.
Right. That's a tough one. Pod page.
So that URL is podpage.com/CMT for me. So there's so many places to listen to our podcast, to get updates, to leave reviews. Do it. Leave reviews.
Please.
And thank you so much, Camilla and Chris.
Yes, thank you.
This has been one of my most favorite interviews. I'm very just touched by your whole story and your dedication
everyone.
and persistence.
Adios, LizO, and adios, Camilla.
You know what?
Bye.
I know a little Swedish too.
Go ahead.
Hejdå. Is that right? Hejdå?
Yes.
Hejdå? Okay. Bye. Thank you.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Adios.